some need to work on it, and then it's down to, it works both ways.
Yeah.
You know, I reached out to you, you've got back to me, so it works both ways.
Absolutely.
So maybe educators need to reach out to more brands to say, come show your products. We've got like a lot of customers here that could potentially buy your product.
No. That's I mean, look, I didn't want to get too much into it, but like, you know, we're quite privileged here in the West. Like, we don't, those raw materials don't come out of our countries anymore. So they're coming out of countries we don't have any connection to. So it's very labour intensive.
Yeah.
And all that stuff gets here. And as a company, you know, there's not a lot we can do about that right now because we don't have that much of a say-so. But what can we do after that point? What's the best thing that we can do? And like, as Cycling Sparks, like, okay, well, we'll transport in the most low carbon way possible. Like,
right. Yeah, I think the fact that we are just so much more exposed, it's sort of pushing us to actually go back into having specific brands, you know, using a good quality product. Yeah, and I said before, like, perhaps price isn't so much of a problem. It's more about what brand I want to use. Don't get me wrong, I still want the best possible price for that brand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so
we don't have that many because of the ethos we have.
Yeah.
We try to stick with the brand. So we don't have that many problems per se. It tends to be site problems where the contractors experience a problem on site, not necessarily if they're doing, but the greater scope of, you know, painters and decorators, plasterers, plumbers, they're all on site.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not actually the product, it's per se, it's something that's happened on site. So
Thank you very much. That's my next question. Well, how can, in your mind, how can wholesalers and manufacturers support the education of the next generation more?
Oh, well, this is what I was going to get to with this one. I think they've got to get into education more.
Get into the institutions?
Yeah.
Right.
Come and bring their products to the actual colleges itself.
Okay.
You know, some are good at that. Some need to work on it, and then it's down to, it works both ways.
Yeah.
You know, I reached out to you, you've got back to me, so it works both ways.
Absolutely.
So maybe educators need to reach out to more brands to say, come show your products. We've got like a lot of customers here that could potentially buy your products.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's a win-win for both.
Yeah.
You know, and then maybe we could have old stock that couldn't be used.
Okay.
Given to the college at a discount price.
Yep.
On there as well for us. Maybe college discounts.
Okay.
Because generally we're not going out there and reusing it and reusing it. Unfortunately, conduit, a lot of it gets recycled.
I know it does.
For us, we can't reuse it and reuse it. Once we put a bend in the conduit, we can't take the bend out. So I think it's just collaborating more, better communication, come and do some tech talks on the shop floor at the college. And then maybe if they've got some end stock, damaged equipment, that could be a use for a college.
Yeah.
Maybe going, reaching out and going, we've got this stuff. Are you interested in it?
Right. Okay.
You know, the college may go, it's not good, no good to us.
Yeah.
Or, you know, but at least the offer's there.
Absolutely. I mean, that collaboration is this conversation right now. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. We've built this relationship up, you know, over several months.
Yeah.
It's been nice to do that, and you know, you supported us, and I want to support you back.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to do more as an industry.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to see a bit of a shift.
I think social media has helped that a lot.
Well, you've given these unfiltered platforms to people. Really,
I think you know, before social media was around, I don't think those platforms were available.
No.
You know, so it wasn't probably advertised right for the manufacturer to come to the college. What, you know, now it can be advertised through the different social media platforms of both the manufacturer and the educational provider as well. So it's a win-win on both sides. I think social media has helped that collaboration. I think it's got to get better and better and better.
I think it only will as well. Yeah. And I mean, when we were talking just a few minutes ago about, you know, it's got to be both ways. I think, as well as the manufacturer or the wholesaler, whoever going into the institutions, I think we should invite the students out to us as well. And come and see what we do.
Yeah, I'm very keen for that, because what I saw today in the factory there, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know the testing you do on your products is so stringent as well. I was really impressed with that. And I think our learners would enjoy that as well.
I think so. I mean, it'll give them a bit of, you know, if you took conduit tube, for example, as you were saying earlier on, sometimes you bend it and you'll get that. You'll
get a ripple or a tear in it, or where it's stretched around a former.
Yeah, so we can take students through that and show the tests that we do to ensure that doesn't happen, and here's why.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, like I said to you before, a lot of the metal work will be on display. It's not hidden generally.
Yeah.
And if you've got those stretches, those tears in it, the customer's not going to be happy about that on show.
Certainly not now when you're in your local coffee shop.
Exactly that, in your bistros and that.
Exactly.
And if you've only got that tube, then you've then got to go out and buy another brand. Yeah. It's going to cost you time and money because you've only got that tube on the job.
Exactly.
And you know it's going to keep on happening.
Yeah, precisely. Okay, so there, little call out to manufacturers and wholesalers alike.
Yeah. Please come to Walsall College, get in contact with me. I'd love to have you in. And some do. So I don't want to be too negative and say no one does. There are some brands out there, manufacturers, that are really good and do support colleges. Yeah. And long may it continue.
Yeah. Hey, look, Andrew, you're sat here talking to me and we haven't done it before because this is new to us. What's your view on the carbon footprint of the construction industry and the wider built environment? And then also, what are your thoughts on the UK's net zero targets?
Well, I mean, the level of work that we do, we're not really brought into the... Well, I mean, like, obviously carbon footprint is a massive issue, generally speaking, but if we get a design, that's not really down to us. I mean, that's down to appliances, I think, what a customer specifies, what appliance they want and how much, what that appliance's power consumption is going to be, so we have to design to that.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I think on the bigger sites it's kind of othered.
Okay.
You'll do your site induction and they'll go like, waste management's really important in the environment, but once it's gone in the bin, it's forgotten about. Nobody really thinks about it, where it goes or what happens to it. And I think there's a real lack in connection with what we're using and doing every day. Everybody just chucks stuff away.
Okay. Do you think that's limited to the construction industry?
No. That's I mean, look, I didn't want to get too much into it, but we're quite privileged here in the West. Those raw materials don't come out of our countries anymore, so they're coming out of countries we don't have any connection to. So it's very labour intensive.
Yeah.
And all that stuff gets here. And as a company, there's not a lot we can do about that right now because we don't have that much of a say so. But what can we do after that point? What's the best thing that we can do? And as Cycling Sparks, okay, well, we'll transport in the most low carbon way possible.
Right.
That's, you've got to start thinking this 2-tier way just because it comes in. So
yeah.
I'm messing up a bit, but you've got to think. You've got to have more of a connection where things are coming from, essentially.
Yeah.
And what's involved in getting it out of the ground.
Yeah.
To where you're using it.
So really, and I know you mentioned this before we started recording, but you said quite rightly, by the way, that if the lower carbon products aren't available,
yes,
what are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
In your position?
Exactly. I think this is manufacturers really need to take it up a notch with bioplastics and stuff like that. They really need to look for strong, workable solutions for that, because if the products are there, much like my customers, I'll give it a go. I'll try it.
Okay.
And if it works just as well as the previous product, then I'll use it. But it's very little. I know Vargo did their green line recently with their connectors, and I think it's supposed to use a certain amount of less plastic and it's supposed to perform the same. But that's the only thing I've really seen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really any fan manufacturers or there's one of the things I just saw massive waste on was packaging.
Yes.
So I was fitting a load of emergency bulkheads once. It's just before I left to start Cycling Sparks, and it came in a box, and inside were little boxes, and they were covered in plastic.
Yeah.
And then I opened that, and then that was covered in plastic, and then the bulkhead came in 2 bits that was covered in plastic, and it was just like, this is such a massive waste. I'm not saying it doesn't look good, the product, but we don't need to be doing it like this anymore.
Yeah.
You've got to start thinking differently about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really do agree. And look, this discussion isn't. We haven't chosen this topic because Metpro is this beacon of carbon neutrality. We do offset our domestic emissions.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're doing that because we know we have a responsibility. You can't ignore it. But we're not blind to the fact that we are in a position to perhaps do more.
Yeah.
So it is on the agenda to start looking at alternative materials and packaging, like you say. That's something that we've discussed before. and is also on the agenda. So we're now looking to move forward with a dedicated internal committee.
Okay.
Our carbon reduction plan is going to be
Right.
properly thought out at director level, and give us some key action points and milestones to hit in, as we progress forwards to our ultimate goal, which is needs a bit of defining as well. So we have got work to do. But what I like about this conversation is that we're sat here now, contractor and manufacturer, and you're telling us what you think, how we can help this particular situation, which people will not be quiet about, justifiably. And I think that's one factor that's been missing, is that traditionally we wouldn't speak to you. We would speak to the wholesaler, who then speaks to you. So I think having this dialogue throughout the supply chain means that we can go and is more of an impetus for us to go and start looking at alternatives, because then we can talk to you. We're not going to sell it to you, but we can talk to you, understand the demand, see if it works, do some on-site, real world testing, in the hopes that kind of drives adoption quicker. If you know what I mean, because I've said this so many times on this as part of these discussions, and privately as well. We are an industry, I think, that is quite rooted in tradition, and we don't, when innovation comes along, it's why it's so hard for us to really get these innovations out there, and we do get a bit of flack for it, mainly around that you're removing skills from the job, but then when we talk to people about it, like, well, what are people on about? So there seems this just, I don't know,
well, there's a certain
negative
amount of
mindset.
cynicism about what we're doing within the industry. I mean, actually,
Really?
Yeah, well, there was. I mean, I have to say less so now. People are generally quite supportive of it.
Good.
Like, of what we're doing. But there was a big move, like, well, how you can do this, how you can do this. Now it won't work, and all the rest of it. But, it's that kind of, you have to see it through.
Yeah.
You can't just have an idea and go, they said it was rubbish and then that's it, I'm not going to use it. It needs to develop and grow and, refine.
Absolutely. It's like real work.
Exactly.
We've got to do some real work. And I know that we touched on this beforehand as well. But I do personally get the feeling in the climate conversation, and in other conversations. I mean, data was one that we've spoken about before, product data. There seems to be, it's a bit, I'm not looking to cause issues, but this is just my personal opinion. So it's not necessarily the opinion of Metpro, but it seems to be a bit virtue signaling. Like, we need to do that to tick a box, and then we can get this credential and life's good.
Well, I think, if I'm honest, I think there's a lot of corporate stuff, the tick box stuff, and you've got people ticking boxes like, I don't actually understand this. So the people that are ticking the boxes going, I'm just told to do this.
My customer wants it, so I'll do it.
Exactly, But
or
they don't really have a connection with what's going on, or, they don't, it's maybe too overwhelming, but there is that. I mean, I think, in bigger corporations and companies, they'll be like, right, have we ticked this box? Yes, and all the rest of it. But then again, there was a client of ours who said, we use really good electricians, but they don't have a zero carbon plan where you're automatically it.
Right.
So again, it's providing that solution there and going well, don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's a really overwhelming big sort of subject, and if people aren't properly trained in it, it will just become a tick box. But also the solutions need to be there.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I do think educating people on it is so vital. I mean, I hate talking about things that I don't understand fully. So I'll always try and hold off. And I need to, as a caveat for myself, really, as a disclaimer on this one, I'm not the most au fait with climate control. I tend to get the information from news channels, and then other people have heard. So
I think from a contractor point of view, it's because you mentioned going back 30 years, whatever, when Tony was a younger man. They
very kind of you. Yeah. I think you have to go back a bit more than 30, but yeah.
It was very brand specific.
Yes.
I think going forward, it's going to become more like that, because just of the nature of the world we're in, social media plays a massive part of our lives, and influencers on there like Nick Bundy we mentioned,
and yourself. Don't sell yourself short.
Definitely not an influencer, but
well, you're on the way. Seriously.
Those people are very influencers. They're influential on people like myself and other contractors, because and people like yourself obviously notice that, and that's why you work with those people, because you're selling a good product and you want people to see that. Unfortunately, not all of the products are good, but I like to think the influencers pick up on that and don't get involved.
Right.
So, I'm seeing on a regular basis, say Nick Bundy using a particular brand of switch accessories, and it kind of gets in your mind a bit, and you end up using that yourself. And at the same time, from my point of view, because we use social media and YouTube quite a bit, you're so exposed, so you don't want to use a rubbish product.
Absolutely.
Because you will be judged for it.
Yeah. Well, there's accountability, right? Which I think is one of the big things that's missing. And that was something else that we touched on when you came in before, which was, we're not, this isn't like, let's get the pitchforks out and go on a witch hunt and really embarrass people. But, do we, you forced, or you're inviting a lot of accountability on yourself by putting the work that you do online for people to see, because anyone can go and look at that, and you get the some bored troll, for lack of a better term, who's just
warrior.
like, well, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I would have done that differently. Okay, yeah, great. But people are able to just completely slander your work or praise it.
Yeah, there's, for every one person out there that would say something good, there's 50 people that would say something bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of bored people in the world for sure.
Yeah. But that's the same with any sort of aspect of business.
Yeah.
We'll send out a link after every job we complete for a review on Google, for instance. Yeah. Very few of them actually do it.
Right.
But if you've done something bad, they're going to leave you a bad review, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are.
But it's, so, I think the fact that we are just so much more exposed, it's sort of pushing us to actually go back into having specific brands, using a good quality product. And I said before, like, perhaps price isn't so much of a problem. It's more about what brand I want to use. Don't get me wrong, I still want the best possible price for that brand.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course you do.
But so it's
I mean, from my perspective, I think the 30 plus years, to get me back to a young man, brand was more important, and I do think that when we look at this, if we are trying to find a solution to why we don't talk enough or why we don't communicate enough, I think we do have to roll it all the way back and say, right, okay, what do we do collectively to raise the awareness to the people who are ultimately the recipient of your work, my product, your manufacture, that it can't just simply be about price, that there is a reason for a quality product. I bought a new house 25 years ago. It wasn't a cheap house. It was a modern house at the time. And I walked in the electrical accessories were the cheapest on the market. Absolutely, yeah. And I know that even today that's still happening.
Yeah.
That there is still, it's cheap as possible. Not illegal.
Yeah.
They're not illegal products. We're not talking about illegal products here. We are talking about products that are at the low end of a market. And there's an impact in that. There's an impact because they inevitably price driven. They are, in many cases, exceptionally low priced on a scheme from the manufacturer, which means you virtually cannot compete against it with anything else. And we seem to find that acceptable. We seem to think that's okay. Because the builder's got to make a profit and somebody else has got. But surely, we wouldn't apply that to food.
No,
yeah, very true.
We would not apply that to food. That the grocer's got to make a profit so he can sell rank vegetables. Or the butcher's got to make a profit. He can sell 6-week-old meat. We wouldn't accept it. We wouldn't find that acceptable. Yet somehow in the industry that we're in, and I'm not saying it's deliberate, but that's it is where we are, and we need if we're ever going to change it, we have to be honest about it and say it's less about who got us where. It's where are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can point fingers at everybody,
and it doesn't achieve anything.
And it achieves nothing.
Yeah.
It's about, okay, let's consider, is brand awareness the way to go? And therefore, if more brands become more selective in who they deal with, maybe that helps, because you have a scenario, whether we like it or not, where the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority of manufacturers, suppliers, will deal with anybody these days. When I was young, you had a franchise.
Yeah.
I worked in a branch that had a Telemecanique franchise in a time when people couldn't even say Telemecanique.
Right.
Yeah, that French stuff. Yeah. And nobody in the entire county could get that other than through the designated wholesaler. As a result of that, a contractor like Theo could go to that wholesaler and get anything within that range off the shelf there and then. No, I can order it in for you, or I can get it for you. No, because that was their speciality.
Yeah.
Today, virtually any wholesaler can do anything. Yeah, there is no prerequisite to be good at it. It's just they can do it.
Yeah.
So I can do it well. Wholesaler D can do it badly but cheaper. And so you're constantly fighting that strategy that says, well, where's the fault? Is the fault with the supplier manufacturer that they're now being driven themselves for sale, and therefore every wholesaler in the town will do product X or Y? Is it because they became greedy? Is it because technology that we now have to deal with eliminated the mystique of being a franchise? Now anybody can see online the products. Anybody can get a price for a product, whereas years ago that wasn't the case. So for a wholesaler now, we become progressively jack of all trades and masters of none. And invariably, we're the jack of all trades when you want us to be masters. So why haven't you got this? Well, there's a reason we haven't. 10 years ago, we might have done. We might have had all of it. But time's moved on. Businesses are run differently, and you're almost in the small shop versus the big supermarket mold now. The small shop can sell you product, but they can't sell it as well as the big supermarket. But we accept that because maybe it's your convenience store. Maybe you don't live within 5 miles of a big supermarket, and therefore you judge, well, I'm not going to drive for 30 minutes to get a can of beans that are 2 pence or 5 pence cheaper. I'll just walk to the shop and get it. So we've kind of got an industry now where so much is common, so much is the same, that wholesalers in general are losing their identity beyond price.
Right.
Because, well, we can all do the same products pretty much. We can all do the same brands. We can all do it good or bad, but we can do it. Some of us are more expensive than others because we have overheads, we have support functions that we have to support. Some of us will give you the ability to and the integrity of a supply chain. Others won't because they can't. And you've got all of that complexity swirling around that is driving availability, it's driving price, and yet none of us can actually put our finger on where the origin of that is. What's actually driving it.
What does AT&T favour? Are you product, price, or quality?
Quality is the most important, I guess, but price is a massive factor in today's market. But quality has a longevity with customers. If you're driving the price down at the time, the quality of that product is usually poor,
right?
Because the price is low, and the customer may not come back. Okay. So by having the quality of the product at a good commercial price, you sort of know there's going to be a little bit of a premium price, but quality, it retains customer. So we know where our products are going with our contractors, that it has to be right. We can't compromise quality. And we're always up against price. It's always the same, and you can always find something cheaper. There's always this, good, better, best.
Yeah.
We do better and best.
Right, okay.
We try to do that, so we try not to go down to a sort of a price man. But sometimes, what the classic commodity items, I think there's wood screws. I think one of your previous people commented on that. Now we become it's a commodity product.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful we don't compromise quality, because ultimately, the end user pays the price if they have an issue on site. It costs them long term, because they've got to go back and fix it. It's either the wholesaler's got to pay the price or the manufacturer's got to pay the price.
Absolutely.
So somewhere there's got to be an acceptance that quality of the products we're supplying and our reputation is key. So certainly quality around a good commercial agreement is always preferable.
Okay.
But you can't always compromise that to the quality, certainly.
Okay, good. And I mean, I know we ran through the questions again before we started. I might throw the odd one in, so forgive me for that. But there is a question I'm going to ask you, but I will stick to the list for the next one. Have you got any examples of frustrations, or what are the main frustrations to AT&T when you have product quality issues?
We don't have that many because of the ethos we have.
Yeah.
We try to stick with the brand. So we don't have that many problems per se. It tends to be site problems where the contractors experience a problem on site, not necessarily they're doing, but the greater scope of, painters and decorators, plasterers, plumbers, they're all on site.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not actually the product, it's per se, it's something that's happened on site. So because of what we do, we don't really have that quality issue where products are coming back. There may be product recall from a manufacturer.
Right.
There are always issues. Yeah. But because of the way we operate, the relationships we have with our manufacturers and suppliers, we go back to them and we'll go, look, we've got a problem with this one. 9 times out of 10, it's, it goes away for quality checks and the usual things. But we tend not to have too many issues because of how we work. But over the years, there's been many. I'm sure I know where we've supplied cable where it's a 95-metre run and it's supposed to be 100-metre cable,
right?
And the cores are stuck together because it's it's been imported from somewhere. So when you're dealing with certain suppliers, you take that risk. So over the years, I've learned to make sure that the people we deal with have the continuity and the quality, and looking at your quality room. Yeah, you're certainly way up there with the people who I've seen do the checks on the products that are coming in. So over the years, loads of issues, but generally with AT&T, it's been good because of the suppliers we deal with.
Okay, I mean, you're talking there about, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so feel free to correct me, but you referenced a previous guest. I'm assuming you're talking about Tony Howard.
Yep.
And Tony was very much in this commoditization's almost got out of control.
Totally. Yeah.
Do we need to get back to brands? It seems like that's the kind of approach that AT&T are taking.
Tony's probably been in the industry a little bit longer than me. I started in '88, but I was brought up on brands. Cable were all brands, or the cable management were brands. So when I first started, the brands were very, very strong, and we allowed those brands to disappear. I mean, the manufacturing in the UK is almost gone now. Yeah. From when I first started in the industry. So the commoditisation of a lot of products, it is there. Yeah, cable ties. People say it's a commodity product, but actually that there are so many factors that can make a good cable tie and a bad cable tie. Temperature. I mean, people moan about them, but you're buying a cable tie that will snap. Yeah. But you buy a better one for maybe 50, 60p a bag more, you don't have the problems. Now, it doesn't seem a lot, but they're the sort of issues where the commoditisation has become problematic in the industry because of we just drove down to the price rather than looking at the quality and why we're paying a little bit more for a product.
Absolutely. Does it scare you?
Yeah, Yeah, because these products are not only going into big commercial brands, they're going to people's houses.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the products that are being fitted, I'm quite lucky, like yourselves. We're in the industry for electrical, so we kind of understand what's a good consumer unit, what's a good cable, etc. But if I'm talking to the plumbing world and the heating, they've got tighter regulations. So the people installing those products are a little bit more, they're in a far tighter constraint of what they can and can't supply.
Right.
But outside of that, I wouldn't know necessarily if the bricks and the mortar that they're doing essentially with are the top quality. So we're all at risk of accepting that's the bottom line price. But there's a reason that it's 20% cheaper than somebody else because of using products, and sometimes it's labour.
Yeah.
But certainly in our industry, I think there's a fear of putting in a product because it's price driven above the quality. There's a happy medium ground, like yourselves, good product, a fair commercial deal, and that's what we all strive for. But while we allow products to be driven down on price and commoditise things, because 20mm conduit, 25mm conduit is almost commoditised now.
Yeah,
really is.
It really is. Yeah.
And it's you shouldn't be. You wouldn't start looking at what you guys do and understanding the quality process and making sure the stamps are all on the conduit. It does start to make you think. And I didn't until Larry really, and I started to look at this on why you were a little bit dearer than certain people.
Yeah.
And then you understand, I'm going, yep, that makes sense. And I understand it. And it's that education to, our contractors and the specifiers really need to understand, that's why we are a little bit dearer. And a lot of wholesalers do the same. So we're not on his own.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there seems to be a bit of I wouldn't know where to put this in the demographic, but there seems to be a bit of a predisposition towards that race to the bottom mentality. I mean, like you said there, conduit tube is practically commoditized now.
Yep.
And that's part of the battle for us. Metpro is metal products. We know that. That's our bread and butter. It's what we've done since day one. So we know what we're doing.
Yep.
And that's like a major part of the battle for us, is getting that through to the customer and help it. Like you've said, you sat down with Larry to understand just exactly why. Yep. And you're not, you might be paying a bit more in some instances, but it's not for a comparable product.
No.
So yeah, okay, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's the education of the hardest bit is educating somebody why we are dear on a quote, and we train our guys to do that. We say to them that the reason is our channel is dearer is because of the thickness, and you end up de-engineering a product. That's usually why steel is cheaper, because there's probably less content. The processes are slightly different, and it's coming from a source where there are cheaper labour. Yeah, many factors, and that's a compromise. So, do we want to supply products into our contractors that is inferior? No, but it's educating them. It's a hard task because they're under pressure as well. So we appreciate this is a whole chain thing. It's not just us. It's not just you. It's not just the contractor. The whole chain has to reevaluate quality above price.